is on. Let's move this forward. All right, so welcome to my series of interviews of the best in the biz of real estate. I am Stephen Christie of the Christie Realty Group here at eXp Realty. And today I have the pleasure to interview one of the best in the best, but also one of my best friends for over 30 years, Alan Shafran. Hello, Alan.
How you
So
doing? How you doing?
the best part is I've watched Alan grow his business as an individual agent to a team. I watched him make a few moves that helped define his journey, obviously from Westlake Village, where he started, all the way to Denver, Colorado, and then all the way back over to San Diego. So that's pretty big moves, huh?
That's a lot of moving. I was a
Yeah,
gypsy for a little bit.
yeah, you
I
were.
think I think that I think that that plagues a lot of young people in their need for adventures.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, here's a few stats about Alan. Obviously, he won't, tell you all these things, but I'm going to. He's got approximately about 35 years in the business, and he's done over $4 billion worth of business, which in our world, that's a lot of business. So congratulations, first of all. Um,
thanks, buddy. I'm only 36 years old, so I'm not sure how you got 35 years in the
well,
business.
1 year old, you're still selling. So obviously you had it all in you anyway. So the funny part about you, I got the chance to see you as the single agent starting the business, and then now through these years of always communicating and being involved in so much, I've seen you become the highest producing team in Southern California. Which the way you think and the way you process life always amazes me. I'm also lucky to have you as a friend because we also get to really talk about things as growth. You
Yeah,
know, and the other
yep,
thing too is funny, your background, right?
yeah.
You managed money for Payne Weber back in Denver, which was a big shift. What made you move real estate to managing money?
Well, I mean, and vice versa. Obviously, I've been really lucky to have you as a friend. Met you at a young age, in the real estate business. And you remember, man, the real estate journey has been a super interesting journey. I mean, not only have we been part of the industry forever and watching the technology, change and morph this industry, but certainly, being in the, boots on the ground and getting our hands in the dirt. I was like everybody else. I mean, I was trying to be a high performer, which I was even as a single agent, but I was getting burnt out. And there were moments that I loved
Right.
the business and moments that I absolutely hated the business. And so after doing it in Agora Hills, Westlake, and then doing it again in Denver. In Denver, I landed and I did real estate over there for Perry Butler, which was one of the largest local firms. And my average sales price back then was about $127,000. For those of you out there that are complaining about a $500,000 deal, even on our team, they're like, "Oh, that was only 2 million," and we're like, "No, no, I used to do 127,000. Our average listing commission at the time, I think, was like 4.2% and 2.8 to the buyer side. That's what it was back then in Denver. It was really weird. But I ended up working my way up to the number one slot in about a year and 3 months, but I was killing myself. And I got burnt out. Man, I hated
Yeah.
it. So I was still young and no children yet. And I called up some people I really admired, and they said, "Hey, try money management. You can annuitize the business. You can shut it down on weekends, things like that." And that's how I got into it.
Well,
And it was an incredible experience. Really educated. I was sent to New York. I mean, they were an incredible company with incredible experience, and it really opened my eyes. And when it opened my eyes and seeing a bunch of businesses out there and how they operated and how much profit they actually kept, and comparing it to how I was taught to run this business, keeping 95 cents of every dollar, it really opened my eyes to say, wow, real estate really is a wonderful industry, and I really think it can be attacked in a different way.
right,
And
right.
you and I were talking at that time a lot too. That's kind of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
summation
Well,
for that piece.
you've done a lot of things though. Okay, so Alan, you went from there, you got back, you started building your business again in San Diego, and then you decide I'm going to develop a software company, which I always knew you were that guy to do
Yeah,
that,
you knew
and I
that.
was
You knew
always
that.
impressed by
Yeah,
that. So I was like,
yeah.
but you developed a software company for real estate and you sold it. and made a great profit out of it. How did you
I was
shift your
fortunate.
brain from that?
Oh man, you knew I was a really good end user and a tech nut, and that was it. And just on the forefront with all the changing technology in the computer industry at the time, and was really lucky to be part of the the internet boom when internet just really entered real estate. We saw websites for this first time and lead gen for the first time on the internet, and I was starting to just see what the technology was capable of, and I saw a little hole. That was too small for any of the big guys to manage and as far as the companies, and I just attacked that and we built it and we were fortunate. I mean, I may have sold it a little too early because I sold it to the company who then sold to Zillow for a year later.
I saw
uh
that.
but
That was crazy. But
for
you were in
for
there
half
though.
a billion dollars, maybe I left some money on the table there.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility. But
Yeah,
it's always you're in that world of development of that, and you're
yeah.
thinking, when do I get in? When do I get out? Because all these people are jumping in, and you're like, okay, I need that. I need to get to the next. And you're always forward thinking, and which I always loved about you, because you're always like
Thanks, man.
you're the most efficient person I know when thinking forward. And that also was really fun to be around you. And the things that you always thought about was how you're going to build your wealth, how you're going to build your net worth. And like today, you're so great in investments and development, and then you're growing your wealth and you're growing your net worth. So tell me how you shifted your journey from being really great in sales. How do you move that mindset of income coming great from sales to going, okay, let me shift some time into investment development? Because that's huge time to work.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I really didn't see that one coming today, but um I
Well,
think that
but that's where everybody wants to
it's a
grow
great,
from.
yeah, it's a great question. And what I was going to say, that I learned so much from developing that software company, because I was building real estate at the time when the idea arrived. And the problem with entrepreneurs, and certainly in real estate, is we see the new shiny star and then we want to hit that. And yeah, my real estate business almost went to zero when I started developing the software business. And I remember I woke up one day in a panic, like one listing and no escrows with a team. And that's how fast, if we take our eye off the ball. And fortunately, I had a partner in the software business, and I said, "Hey, I've got to redevelop this thing and get this thing back up and running. You take over for a little bit, and then let's circle back." I would say the answer to that long-winded, the long-winded, short of the long, is I think you have to surround yourself by great people. I
Right.
heard that when I was young. I hear that today. A lot of people maybe listening to this might hear that and say, what does that mean? How do we do that?" I think it's everything. I
Yeah.
think it's everything. Whether and learning, how to be great at something so you can develop it, the timing, when do you need help? How do you shave years of learning and education off your journey so that you can uh okay, the saying is, right, a smart person is someone who learns from other people's mistakes. I mean, from their mistakes, sorry. The smartest people, the billionaires, are the people, I mean, that learn from other people's mistakes so they can just jump over the problems that everyone else has experienced versus having to experience it themselves. And I'd say that's what, that adage kind of applies to. Surround yourself by great people, whether it's a partner or your network team or your real estate coaches or whatever.
Well, it's funny you say that because you and I have always thought bigger and we surrounded by big mentors. We always thought, how do we build our careers around the big people who aren't afraid to think so big? And now today
Yeah.
we get the opportunity to surround ourselves about hundreds of the top agents around the country in our networks and our masterminds. And again, you just said it. It took many years of investment and money to build this network. And today we mastermind and we share with so many people the success of
Yep.
great agents in our business and where they failed, certain their failures, because the failures obviously gave them the growth, correct?
100%. Well, I mean, it was the premise of why we joined this group in the company. And I'm not going to overemphasize it, but when I just say, and again, none of this is rehearsed. Stephen just said, I'm going to ask you questions and you just riff and just go with it and go from there, everybody. And we're here to answer questions and help. Um, and I would say that, even into this group, the group that we joined, now that I'm thinking back, the 100% attraction for me was being surrounded by a bunch of incredible producers, and they do everything. I mean, we were talking, our Wednesday calls have, I think, anywhere between 80 to 120, sometimes more people on them. And to be on that list, you have to sell a minimum of 100 homes a year or 100 million. And we have people in there selling, 900 homes a year in another state. Locally, the biggest guy in almost in the country at this point for EXP, and he sold last year 606 million with almost 700 units. So think about the systems that someone has to have in order to accomplish those results, and it's being handed to us on a platter. I really couldn't
Yeah.
believe it, because what you and I used to pay when we first started this business,
Right.
I mean, nobody remembers $30,000. I still think that's a lot of money. Back then, it was $100,000 in today's money easy.
Right.
And that's what you have to pay today to be surrounded by those kinds of coaches when you go to different networks and they're saying join our coaching and everything else. This
Right.
was just part of the group. And I really couldn't believe it until I saw it. I would encourage anybody to try and get in on one of those calls, because what
Yeah.
you learn in 5 minutes will blow your mind.
It's
And it's
amazing.
real life stuff. Nobody's selling you anything. That, that's the beautiful
No.
part of it. I mean, to have a group that says, no, guys, don't do this. I failed at this, this, and that, or that company really didn't do right by me. Here's the way to go. They're the best project manager. This is the best this is the best that. How much you paying for this? How much you
Yeah.
paying for that? And to be in the business for as long as we have, and say, wow, a lot of these new young people are taking it to whole different levels. And I
Yeah.
want to ride that coattail. I mean, we've been around long enough to say, oh, great. I don't have to spend 200 grand a year to be part of that.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's interesting because, during our growing years, we always call it the enhancement, right? We go, okay, great idea. How do we enhance this in our market and how we make it
Always,
work? Which was a lot of fun
always.
doing that with you many years. And it's funny. So I'm going to kind of help lay the ground rules for everybody who's on the call today and the people who aren't. What I'm going to do is basically interview Alan, go through some of our discussions, our questions. And for the follow up, if you have questions today, go ahead and put it in the chat. And obviously, probably won't be covered until later, but we will get your responses to your questions. So, everybody on the Zoom, you'll also get a copy of the recording as well. So,
Yeah.
without further ado, I'm going to throw on more questions that you're probably
Under
not
the
ready
bus.
for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, the greatest part is we know each other so well, and it's so fun that, you want to share so much to help people. And, you know, we've developed so many ways to pivot, like you said, and shift and move and make changes ahead marketplaces, because we kind of said, okay, how do we change here and adapt, right? And I love that, because having someone to brainstorm like yourself, who we grinded in the old days. We did all the things that we needed to do. We had to make those calls in the old days, and then to have a friend like you who can shift quick and go, hey, I'm not going to only do this. I'm going to do some other things that no one's talking about in order to achieve success, achieve higher sales, achieve, like, even your price point, how you moved up was amazing. So first of all, I'm going to have the first question. So I'm going to kind of open up this discussion and, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. And I'll keep it about real estate because we kind of went around the other one. And your points are great. Everybody, I mean, what Steven said today, and we didn't always come from this. You got to remember when we started the business 35 years ago, and the business was very closed. It was not transparent. People really didn't share. There wasn't the internet. Right? There weren't cell phones. And you had to pay big money, like I said, to get that data and to get coaching. In fact, I feel like we were around when coaching first started, with
Yeah,
Mike Ferry back then. I mean, it may have
yeah,
started with somebody else before that, but Mike really made it big. Um, so the journey was, I started as an individual agent. My family was in the business, and so I got a taste of it. Um, and mainly door knocking, lots of cold calling, for sale by owners, expireds. I mean, nobody remembers this today, maybe, unless you're our age, like the caravan books, the caravans,
ooh,
open
AG.
houses. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to remember when the phones didn't exist the way they exist today. We were, we were knocking doors and working hard on that. And it's a tough business. I would say that um, we could probably, you might be better than me at this, but I was young, so like everybody, I was going through burnout and fighting. Okay, what's my young life look like, and what's my work life look like? And that's balance. And I think everybody's challenged with that even today, right? So don't think you're alone in that. And that's what causes the burnout and getting in and out of the business, which happened to me too. And that's what I started to discover what I like and what I didn't like about the
Yeah.
business. And so that's really how it started with me individually there, and then got burnt out. Didn't have enough money for taxes. My second year in the business, I had spent all my money. I had done well as a young agent. I think my end of my
Cool
first
car.
year, I mean, yeah, yeah, everything was gone. Just nobody talked to me about taxes. So I barely paid that off with my savings, and I took some time off as a young guy, and then I came back and started again. And every time I did that, um, what I did learn is to try and stay passionate about what you like about the business and what you can do. There's many different ways to become successful here. So we can talk about that in, other questions. I don't want to
Well,
derail us completely here, but
but you as a young man, or I should say,
yeah.
I'm remembering you as a young man, you were competitive, right? It was pretty
Oh
fun
yeah.
because you didn't just make it about business. You had fun being competitive. You were in one of the strongest markets in Canal Valley that you can be in, and agents didn't know that. But agents in Canal Valley in those days were all being coached by Mike Ferry. We're all being competitive with you, and it was fun because
All wore three-piece suits.
yes, they all did, right? We all had ties. But the interesting part, I mean, you just kept on innovating. Like, I remember the day you called me and go, I'm in front of a grocery store handing out flyers. I'm like, you doing what? You go, I got my one of my assistants, and we said we're gonna go get some people for this and this. And I'm like, oh my god, did you get kicked out? You go, yeah,
Yep.
they kind of pushed me off. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you should have, you didn't have the Girl Scout cookies, you should have done that
Yeah.
part. But the idea was you didn't care. You like,
I cared. I cared, but I was exercising a muscle and with intention. And that muscle was the gut, like the gut muscle. I was taught this actually by Floyd Wickman way back, which was even, he was partners with Mike Ferry at the time. And I talk about that with our team. In fact, Holly on our team loves it. She brings it up all the time. And what Floyd used to say is like, you have to imagine there's this guts gauge and you're putting it on your belt, right? And
okay,
it goes up like a meter every time, you're using your guts and every time you feel your stomach turning over. And so what I've taught the team is, which I think is difficult today for the agents to learn just because of cell phones and the ability for even them and clients to avoid confrontation. Back then, it was nothing but confrontation. Not everybody's meant for this business. And you have to know that, hey, develop that thick skin, get your guts going. And when I did that grocery store thing, I thought, let's take my buyer's agent assistant at the time. And if we can do this, door knocking in the neighborhood's going to feel like nothing. Calling expired is going to feel like nothing. I mean, rejection at the highest level. You're
okay.
seeing people out in the parking lot doing full circles to evade you.
This was your way of getting so many contacts in the morning for your coach.
So many, that's right. So many rejections. Yeah, I didn't want to lose a bet. I didn't want to lose the bet.
So it's funny. So okay, so this is you. So were you that driven day one, or what caused that drive to success, or what was it?
No, that's a great, wow, that's a really great question. I was not driven day one. I was still a teenager and was more excited about going out to the club and meeting girls with my friends than I was about doing real estate. And if I did a deal, I remember my first deal was like 600 grand, which I got lucky. And that was a lot of money for me at the time.
Yeah.
And my bank account went from like $300, to the commission check. Um, but after I got burnt out and after I made all that money and realized I was left with nothing after taxes and that, when I came back, what I learned in a few years is that I don't think much success is achieved without really going for it. It's just not going to be done half-assed because someone else is out there working harder than you, more committed, more experienced, with more expertise in your particular area. And when I said, okay, if I really want to achieve my goals, financial, and what that meant to me was freedom and buying the things that I wanted. And you and I mean, we both love nice things. I like nice watches, I like nice cars, I like nice vacations. And uh, I had a vision of what I wanted my life to be. And I just kind of said everything else is going to be in second place. And
Right,
that's
right,
that's that's when it changed. And that's also when it became fun because the internal
right,
conflict, and I think a lot of people experience that, people on our team. And I think it's normal. It's okay. There's different balances and different strokes for different folks. I'm not saying ours was the right way, right? We have people on our team
right,
that have families or single parents, and they have things in life pulling at them. That's okay. It's totally cool. You work with what you have. For me at the time, I didn't have that, and was getting frustrated being mediocre.
right,
That just
right,
wasn't working out for me, and I couldn't get out of being mediocre without going all the way. And that's what I learned. And so once I
right,
started to taste that and understand it, and I was a competitor in sports and other things. So anyone who experienced something like that, I don't think it's any different with almost anything you do. If you want to be great at anything, it's just going to take, practice. It's going to take commitment. And you and I have always said that. Like, what's the definition of self-esteem when we're raising children, even? Like, how do you teach that and not just say words? I think the definition, or one of them, of self-esteem is the um, innate ability to the child or the person's ability to know that if I work hard enough and if I practice this, I can achieve it. I can overcome. I can create this hurdle. I can win. And you don't necessarily really know that until you understand it by doing it. And some kids do it in sports, and some kids do it in reading, and some kids do it in education, and some kids do it in hobbies or whatever it is. And hopefully that translates to experiences in adults. If you didn't have that, it's not too late. Then you experience it as an adult, whether it's yoga, aerobics, or whatever. Some sort of, I made the goal, I struggled, it didn't come to me easy. Um, I wanted to quit, but I still achieved the goal. That's when you learn something about yourself. And
right.
so I guess that's the, again, long-winded answer of that. When I suddenly became motivated and I just said, I'm not going to land in the middle here. That's just not going to happen. It doesn't feel good to me. That was
So
just me.
then, let's talk about, can you define any of those pivotal moments, your like aha moments that launched a new level of your success?
Um, yeah, I mean, one of them was, this is I'm trying to find an exact, but there's so many moments, Stephen, that it's hard. It's not just one in particular. Um, but I would say that not having enough money to pay my taxes one year was one. As far
Motivation.
as yeah, as far as the definition of the industry, it was a moment after a couple of years where I realized, unfortunately, um, the industry is getting more competitive, and we have to be good at just about everything in order to really win. Um, and for those of you out there that are brand new, and those of you who've been there for a little bit, and those of you that are experienced, I think you'll get it. Like, we have to prospect or create the leads. We have to be great at that. Then we have to be great at follow up, and convert. Then we have to be great at making the appointment. Then we do all this work to get the appointment. Now we have to be great at competing, with the best agents on the appointment. Then let's say you get the listing or you get the buyer broker. Now you have to be great at executing. Then you have to be great at closing the escrow. Then you have to be great at the follow up and the past clients. It's for anyone to think that's not a lot, in my mind, means they don't understand the industry quite yet, right? It's it's that. And so a couple of years in the beginning, and then doing it again in Denver and getting burnt out. And then when I came back, and I think now I have it, like the most pivotal time was probably when I was in Payne Weber.
Right,
And in
right,
Payne Weber, um, when I really saw how much we were getting paid. So if I was managing back then 80 million in assets, right? which was back then was a lot. Certainly for someone new, I got lucky in a couple of big time type of accounts when I was new in the business. We got paid a percentage of 25% of the commission. And we were taught to survive, grow, and learn based upon that and create a business that in 10 years was going to help you live the kind of life you wanted to lead. And then I was watching other businesses and truly getting educated by my clients and everyone else, right? And one of the most profitable companies in the world at that time was Microsoft, still is, right? And Microsoft had known 25% a year, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, and one of the best stocks and best companies in the world, right? We were being taught at the time, really before Teams exploded, was keep 95 cents of the dollar. And that was the education that was going out to the rest of the industry too. And so when I went in Payne Weber and I learned, wow, this is A, I don't need that to survive. B, I think that actually hinders my growth. And C, that is a straight shot to burnout. Because when you think of the ginormity of what's required from us to be successful in the industry, good luck doing it on your own.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, right? So when I came back from Payne Weber, I said, okay, I think if I build this, and I'm not saying what our percentage of profits are today. It's more than 25%. But the concept was, hey, spend money, build money, and have a few different things going. And you have to have that money and have those reserves for staff, marketing
Yeah.
team, and build a real business. And that's when the whole industry was also starting to change. I would say you and I were ahead of the industry with teams and kind of seeing what was forthcoming. But that was probably my single biggest aha moment, and I was missing it, and that's why I left Payne Weber. I'm like, okay, I want to go do real estate again, but I want to attack it differently.
It's funny, you think about redefining yourself, and I think about how new agents come to our business today, right? So,
Mhm.
in your opinion, let's just say, what is the difference for an agent starting out today versus when you started out?
Oh yeah, come on, man, you know all the answers to these questions. No, so I mean, because it was the same. So I mean, there was much more opportunity, and I would say most agents when I first started out and were being taught sweat equity. Sweat equity is when your hard sweat, time, effort, energy, prospecting, calling, expireds, door knocking, all that was called sweat equity. You really didn't need cash for that, right? That was your time, your effort to get there. There was a lot of mailers back then. There was farming, people spending money on distributing pumpkins. You remember that? And snow cones and all that other stuff. That's where the majority of the money was spent, paper at the time. And
Right.
so if you didn't have that, you still had a great opportunity though to succeed and compete without doing that if you were willing to put all those hours into prospecting. I would say today, right? Cold calling much more difficult.
Yeah.
It's possible, but much more difficult, right? The phones, the do not call lists, everything. And by the way, guys, if you don't think they're going to attack more regulations revolving mailers and everything else in this country, you're wrong. They're going to get to that too. But I did see that they way early on that they were going to attack the phone regulations and privacy. But that was sweat equity. Today, right? If you want to be brand new and your first lead on Zillow costs you $2,500 or $1,500 for a lead that may or may not do anything, and that's just one piece of the amount of money that you need to build your business. You need some real money today, in my mind, to build a team or a high producing real estate business. It can be done, and it can be done slowly or it can be done quickly, depends how much money you have. But right, I mean, the internet's
Yeah.
changed everything, and I think
It's
that sweat
pay to
equity is
play.
still possible. Yeah, it's still possible. I just don't see a lot of people wanting to do it.
Well, that's
Today's
another
version
one
of sweat
thing.
equity is a picture on Instagram. Holla.
Oh, it's so funny. But it is what it is. But
Yeah,
it's true
it's all
though.
good.
It's pay to play. And everybody has this vision because obviously we didn't have social media in those days, but everybody has this false pretense about like, come on, our clients to go, hey, so I saw $1 million listing. I'm like, really? Okay, let's talk about what's really going to happen. Or agents today who go, "Yeah, I saw that OC movie show, and this is going to be really cool." And it's like, "Yeah, it does look that pretty out there, doesn't it?" Or someone sees you
Yeah.
drive a nice car, and they go, "Well, everybody should." It's so
Right.
funny the
Yeah.
concept. But then you took it to the team. So, say, how does a team operate today compared to when teams back when they weren't even that noticeable? How did teams succeed? Because they try to do teams, and I don't know if they define teams correctly anymore today, but they people
Yeah.
try to do teams. But how do you see it from past to now the present?
Um, all right. So to keep it as simple as possible, right? Back then, when we were trying to, a team back in the days, like a huge team was like a husband, wife, and an assistant. And then they would
Right.
put their title people in there and maybe an escrow officer and take a picture. And that was considered a huge team. Maybe someone had two assistants and they were mega successful, right? And that just grew and grew and grew. Um, uh, so I would say that the difference is today is that you got to play big, in my opinion, if you go with a team. I mean, you really got to play big. Again, you had sweat equity back then, and you could do a team, but teams more felt like partnerships and an assistant. And a lot of realtors, as you and I have seen over the years, you got to be real careful with your partnerships.
Right.
They think that the other person's going to motivate them, or they think, but remember, you're splitting your commissions, you're splitting your revenue, the cost remains the same. So be careful in how you set that up. And that's why we see most partnerships and small teams like that. Honestly, we don't see them work.
Right.
Eventually they realize, okay, this is not making sense, and they got to figure out a different way. I go individual, I get on a team, or I create my own team.
Right. Right.
Back then, there was still a lot of opportunity when you and I first started, right? Tons of individual agents, et cetera, that were successful. Um, just like everything else in the industry, what we have watched is the middle of the industry is starting to continue to disappear. You're either a boutique kind of agent, or you're happy doing one or two transactions a year, or the teams are getting bigger and bigger. And so that's the decision to make. Now, there's always the exceptions to the rule, right? I'm not saying that's the only way, but that is what we see out there. And I think the transactions are harder today, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
The DocuSign is great, but the liability is intense. The amount of paperwork here in California is incredible. So my hat's off to a lot of the agents that are, doing it on their own today. I would be a little concerned continuing to see the future. It's certainly not,
Yeah.
if my daughter said, "Hey, I want to get in real estate and I want to move out of state," first thing I would say is find the biggest team or best team that matches up with your culture, and you feel like you can fit in, and try and corner as much of that business as possible, and you will have a great life.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, okay, let's go back to the newer agent today.
Mhm.
What's the best advice on how to get started? Like, what would you
Oh,
say would do it?
okay. Um, well, first of all, I do think social media is important. I know I made a comment about it earlier because I laugh about it because I am not good at it, and I'll be the first one to admit it. And maybe I'll get better at it. Maybe I won't. I'm in a place in life where there's not a have to for anything. Um, and like I said, I'm not as passionate about it as other people are, but doesn't mean I can't improve on that immensely. The
I'm sure
You
you'd
can
be
do.
great at TikTok. Come
Yeah,
on.
right. TikTok. I tried it once. I didn't like the way I looked. I got off that immediately. Um, but, I would say social media is super important. It is important, but for those of you out there that think social media is going to give you immediate business, that's where the failure rate comes in, right? Social media is something that might start helping you in 1, 2, 3 years, unless you use social media like some of these experts do, but they're really using it and then they're prospecting on it. I mean, they're looking up phone numbers, they're calling, they're being proactive. So, for new agents today, I would say the number one thing, like anything, is get your skill set up. Number one, because you can do all this work, whether it's door knocking or social media or networking or whatever it is that you want to do. But if you don't know what to say and you're not comfortable with your elevator pitch and you're not confident with your skills in overcoming the objections, you're not confident with the area, like what do you need to do to get a good support system and expedite that process as quickly as possible so that every person you talk to now, you've got a very high success ratio of converting, right? Why talk to all these people with a 10% conversion ratio, right? If you were on a baseball team, they wouldn't even let you go out to bat, right? You go to batting
Right.
practice for that. You fail at batting practice, like you played college baseball, so you know.
Right.
It's like any sport. They're not putting you out in the game, with a high failure rate. So why would you put it into your own career where your livelihood depends on it? Why wouldn't you go practice the way everyone else does in every other industry, in every other system? And it's the number one thing I see that agents don't want to do. It's painful. It's not fun.
Right.
It's not fun
Right.
to role play. It's not fun to memorize those things. We've got all the skill sets for that. We teach our team how to do it. And anyone that we hire on our team, I make sure every single time to make sure they know what's forthcoming because we want to be transparent. And
100%.
and I've had people say, no, 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 I hate role playing. I don't like scripts because it just doesn't feel like me. Um, we've heard that one.
It doesn't
And
work.
it doesn't work. I want to be authentic, um, which I think one can be all those things. But my point is, people don't want to work on that. And then
Right.
when they all of a sudden wonder, okay, well, I'm not making enough contacts, and I don't know what to say when I do make a contact. Why is this not working out? That's your number one thing. If you have those skill sets and you feel great and confident, it will motivate you now to get out there and meet people and talk to people because you'll have this attitude of, come on, let's go. What are you going to say? I got the answer. And so that's where it starts. And then after that, the next step is there's so many different ways to become successful, whether on a team or individual. I go back to my point that I said again, find out what you're passionate about. If you hate social media, then maybe make that a sliver of your business. I think you've got to do it. So it's like a business card at a minimum, if not much more. But then what do you love? What are you passionate about? What is something that you say, okay, look, no matter what, my guts gauge is turning when I do this thing, but I can tolerate it because I love it. I'm passionate in it, and I believe that I'll get there. And then try and be the very best at those one, two, three things. And the last thing is understand that 80% of your daily routine is going to be building your pipeline and following up on your pipeline. 10 to 20% will be the execution, showing property, closing deals, getting listings. Unless you're on a team or you have a system where the leads are being fed to you and you can eliminate those one, two, and three pipelines, then you just got to work on skill set, execution, and that's kind of it. That's kind
But
of the
that's
two
and
ways
that's
to go.
huge though. That's huge. What you just said. You know, it's deciding where you're going to focus your time because people go to these seminars. They go, "Oh, I want to do it all. It's so amazing," and you're like, "No, no, 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 no. Focus and drill in." Right. So then,
Yeah.
what would be the biggest challenges you see today for them? I know that you're saying like, yeah, you really got to get embedded to understand your communication, your dialogue, your presentation, how you read a room. Those are huge. But what do you find the new agent's biggest challenges?
Um, Getting that coaching probably is the number one with the right influence. The agents that we hire on our team, and we don't hire brand new agents. I think that journey that an agent goes through in the beginning is an important experience for them and helps them understand whether or not they want to be on a team or stay individual, right? And both are okay. Um, but that experience, what I was just saying to you, of them going into a company, a system, an agency where they're not getting any training
Right,
and
right.
they just go. They see it like the TV show, and then we wonder why we have an 80 plus percent attrition rate in this business every 2 years of
Yeah,
agents turning over. If you're going to do this, put yourself in the right environment, get the right coaching. Sometimes there isn't money for coaching. There are other systems, other companies that will help put you in an ecosystem that will
right.
help you accomplish those goals. That's the number one challenge. The number two challenge is back to the guts gauge is, will you do what you need to do in order to build your pipeline and get the kind of experience that you need to get and the support system to getting the rejection in order to get the success.
Right,
Um,
right,
and then the third one is not doing one transaction and then taking a vacation for 4 months. So, which we've all done, which we all done, so, unless that's something that you can afford to do, or, your spouse works or something like that. But everyone seems to need to go through it in real estate. I did it, you did it,
Yeah,
where we
yeah,
had a nice run, took the eye off the ball, and next thing you know, there's nothing going.
yeah. Right, right.
So that's just
It's those
experience that
hills
builds.
and valleys, right?
Yeah, yep, yep.
It's funny, and I hope everybody's really hearing this because whether you're a new agent, whether you're a middle agent, whether you want growth or no growth, depend upon you are in an ecosystem when you're joining these companies who don't care about you and bring too many people in. You and I have worked in those companies. We saw the environment out there. And something that we always talk is about your culture and how to succeed. But, if you were to go back to the start of your career, knowing what you know today, because that's huge.
Yep.
Because you got a lot of success behind you, and you made a lot of pivots. Knowing what you know today, what would you do differently? What would you tell them? What would you do differently as you are?
Um, uh, well, it's like what I said about, my daughters. If they said they wanted to join, get into real estate, that's exact, and let's say it was out of state, or whatever, I would say, hey, find the best team and do whatever you can to get on that team. You will learn the business faster. You can decide if you want to go individual after that. You can decide if you want to build your own team after that. A lot of us team leaders, we're totally fine with that. We're transparent with it. And if someone wants to build a team afterwards, you're going to learn everything you need to know. And you will have people that you're surrounding yourself with that you can role play with and help build your success and be accountable to, and create an exciting culture, versus feeling maybe alone. If you can expedite that process, which is what we said in the beginning, that's what I would do differently. It wasn't available to us back then. What was available
Right.
to us back then were strictly seminars. But today, what's available to us, like when you and I chose this particular group to be part of and above us, was the exposure. And you are at a
Right.
very, very high level. And I think I am too. And we said, let's go into a bigger ocean. And every time someone does that with a bigger picture in mind, I think they gain a lot. It's all in knowledge. Just don't have ego, have an open mind. You said something really important earlier, which I'll clarify on. Um, I think that when they go into these bigger companies and they go in at it alone, I think the companies do care. And I think what you meant, though, was that they don't have the time or the systems or the financial resources to care the way a team leader
Yeah.
would
Correct.
care, right? And
Right.
so the old style, right, was, and I think they still do it today. They're like, yes, we're going to take care of you. We're a big team in this company. No, you're not a team. The question should be like, is everyone an individual agent that feels like a team? Because everyone's competing at that point in time. Or is it really a team? And who's investing? Because most of the time the system is mentors, right? And those mentors only have the time typically, and I'm not I think it's all good in the hood, as they say, but the mentors who did that typically were getting very small percentages in the past. They weren't agents that did a lot of business because they were the agents that had time to do that. So it was very difficult back then to get into the ecosystem of the ultra successful. And today you can do that with a snap of a fingers, and you don't have to be spending 100, 200 grand a year to do it.
Right.
I think any
Right.
education is great education. So I encourage everybody, go to as many as you can. But you can get into the inner circles today on a whole different level if you network and allow your team leaders. And that's definitely a question I would ask for anywhere someone's in the
Right.
country. We can help you out with that too if you're in different places, how to find the right team, the right questions to ask, even help find you great teams in your areas where you're at. That's what I would do.
Yeah. It's funny.
100%.
I look at when we're building teams, and it's funny because you learn a little bit differently. Some people build teams because they just want massive people involved in their teams, and there's really no control in the environment, so it just goes wacky, and you have these people over here, these people over there, and they're all doing different things. And then you see teams who are like more structured and picky about who is going to be in their team, because you've done such a great job of building a great culture and success with your team. And again, you went through the process of elimination and growth and processes of who to interview and what's important, what does it look like to be on your team. So give me a little bit about that. How did you make your team culture so successful?
Um, you definitely worked hard on these questions. Or you're written
This is
right
coming up
now.
in my
I'm not
mind.
sure.
You're leading
Yeah, no,
me.
no, it's good. It's good. I would say it was definitely a pivot, right? When I first created a team, and I would tell everyone out there are different team leaders and different systems and different types of teams, and there's different strokes for different folks. There's no right, no wrong, right? There's teams in South San Diego that have 100, 150, 200 agents. And there's teams like yours and mine, for that matter, that are similar, that run between 10 and 20 agents at a time, and that's the way we like it, and that's what feels good to us. What I was shooting for was an environment, right? When I first started, I was very, almost OCD, right? Structured, everyone's in the office by 7:38 and yada yada yada. And that's great. And then I really got burnt out on trying to motivate someone to achieve my dreams rather than learning how to align what the vision is of our company with the right people. So you almost call it like an avatar. I wanted the best environment for us with the best people. My mission was, I want our agents to feel like it's a family. I want our agents to feel like things are fair. I want our agent to feel like it's transparency. I mean, I've been around the block doing teams now for what feels like 20, 25 years of my career. So we've been through successes and failures with it. And we're just very, very transparent with the team along these lines. We create a culture where we want to be celebratory together. We want to help pick up someone else when they're down. We come from a mindset of abundance, meaning like, okay, sometimes we're going to fight over a lead. Who's letting it go because they know there's good karma coming and other things are going to come around. We are not coming from a place where we're chasing the dollar as much as we're chasing the right thing to do, the right thing for the client, the right thing for the systems, the right thing for the teams. And I mean, we just had this talk the other day, right? We have a Zillow Flex team, and Zillow and one of our other resources, like, they're demanding to double our leads because of our conversion ratio is so high. And we're saying, and my approach with Sarah, who's been fantastic at running the team as well, has also been, hey, if we take too much, we're going to create failure and stress, which is really interesting, right? It's a good place to be. And Zillow saying, we don't care anymore. You're taking more of what we're going into. So I sat down with a team the other day and I said, hey, let's brainstorm together. How do we have success? And I looked at somebody and said, hey, when you flake on your schedule, or if you have to cancel all the time, you're putting stress on your teammates. As a team, do you guys want this account? They're like, yeah, we want it. We're crushing it. Okay. So as a team, how do we work together? Because, we're going to lift the tide. One's success is another's. And it took a long time, I think, to learn how to be a good leader and create the right culture. And you and I went through
Right.
a lot of those. We were
Yeah.
in a lot of the same sessions. We learned from a lot of the same people, and we've had a lot of the same challenges. So I don't know if that answers the questions. I
Yeah,
feel
it
like I
does. It does. It really does.
kind of got off.
I'm gonna I'm gonna throw a little bit more at you. I
Okay.
know that we're getting down to the end here, and I do appreciate all the time you've given us today. You know,
Yeah, I mean, we want
and,
to
there,
be
and
able, and Steven said it, like, you got to be transparent and give something we're trying sometimes with the questions, and with a large audience, we can't give exact, concrete,
right.
specific answers, but we are here to be transparent. If you have something we can help you out with, and that was my commitment to Steve. Like, I'm do my best to answer that for you, whether it's another session that we do or whether it's your chat questions.
Yeah.
We're going to do our best to help
So
out everybody.
I'm gonna let two of the chat questions come in. So one question was, as an agent, what kind of structure or schedule do you follow to be successful, or is there a way to be successful on a daily, weekly structure? That's one of the questions that you
Yes.
would suggest.
The common place, it's a great question, by the way. The common place amongst the best producers, individual and teams, is live by your calendar. I mean, you become a Google Calendar expert. You can have multiple calendars. You can share, you can have scheduling appointments, everything. Live by it. You put your calendar for the week, plan it out. Plan out your vacations for the year. Don't, at this place in your career, everything should be planned. Plan out your successes. What are you going to get you or your family, right? Well, even if it's material, hey, I'm going to buy my partner a car, or we're going to take this vacation, and this is when we're going to take this vacation. It is funny, and I'm not a complete universe person, but I do believe in those things, and I believe in karma, and I believe in planning it will help you get there, and envisioning it and affirming it will help you get there. And calendar is one of those things. Live by it, meaning you put it down, follow it. If you put
Yeah.
down every Monday, I am prospecting from 10 to 12 or 12 to 2 or 6 to 8. Do it. When you start doing that, you also start realizing what kind of energy it takes for you to do those things. And you can be nice to yourself. You can say, hey, prospecting from 6 to 8 is very productive. It takes a lot of my effort, though, and it makes me exhausted at the end, rightfully so. Um, I need a break between 3 and 6 that day, or 4 and 6 that day. Plan your break. What are you going to do? Are you going to work out at that time? You're going to eat the right food so you have the right energy? Are you going to take a nap so you come up like with energy ready to go? Like, you do what you need to do. Plan it out. You know yourself. And I've said there's no right, no wrong. I can guarantee you what some of the teams that we get exposed to in calendaring, they don't even have 5 minutes in there. Well, we're talking some very, very, someone who's running a 700 unit a year business.
Yeah.
Trust me, they're living by their calendar. Nothing is just, off the ear
Right.
like that.
Right.
Hope that answers your
And
question.
that I'm sure that does. It has to, because it makes a lot of sense. And the thought process is,
Aren't you that
how
way
do you
too? You've
stay?
you've always been
Yeah,
that way, right?
I've always been a calendar person. That's probably one of my number one successes, was sticking to a calendar. You know how we were before. You and I used to, and I used to tell my team, I said, I call Alan in the morning and we would practice. And this is
Right.
what, 6 o'clock in the morning
Oh yeah.
before we
Yeah.
did expireds. And
Yeah.
people
Don't
just
scare
like,
don't scare people. Don't scare people. That was the old
yeah,
days.
but,
People get up
but
today at 10. 10. 10 is early in
but
the
it
in
was
the day.
weird. It was like, in our mind, it was like, this is what you do, right? And it's funny because I think the biggest challenge everybody has is, how do I connect to so many people? How do I stay effective in follow up? We know that the two things that create our pipeline is our follow up. They get so many great leads that sometimes you're looking for the bottom fruit, not the top fruit, and
Yeah.
then the top fruit goes to somebody else. What would you suggest to keep consistent and keep their mind in it, to how you develop good follow up systems, or good follow up structure itself?
Um,
Because you get busy, we get busy.
yeah, yeah. Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And like I said earlier, you've always got something pulling at you. What and both of us did it. I mean, we were taught it a long time ago. I mean, we used to have, guys, before there was the iPad and Google Docs and everything else, right? We had a business manual that we developed every year. So you had your goals, and then you had your business plan, and then your business plan then demanded, in order to achieve that business plan and goals, the systems. And we literally had a folder this thick that we walked around with. It was our Bible. You remember that?
Right?
And the stuff
Still
that we
do.
would do to stay consistent, yeah, it depends how important it is to you, right?
Yeah.
So today, that's such, like, our binder for the team would look like this, right?
Right.
With our systems and structures and the things that we spend and the assistants, because you're quadrupling it times 10 sometimes, with depending on how many staff and everyone else you have going on, because that's got to follow all the way through, and it all has to talk. So a lot of people have just let us do that, and then they don't have to worry about that. They just have to worry about being accountable. They have many business plans and staying with the team. I would say, do your affirmations every morning. Certainly in the beginning, it's very difficult. Remind yourself every day, why are you doing this? That will help create the energy. If you don't have that why, for whatever reason, I want to get out of debt, I want to make $1 billion, I want to achieve my goals of development, I want to travel to Japan, whatever it is, you've got to have your affirmations to remind yourself, this is why I'm working this hard. I do
Right.
this in order to achieve this. And then the second thing is, have your goals that then talk to your business plan, and then have your business plan that that has its systems and read it every day. You got to start every day reading it. So that's the hardest thing because it's the fuel, it's the food for the brain
Right.
to help remember. Because man, I don't know about you guys, but like when I watch TV, I'm typically on the phone watching TV and the computer, right? I'm doing three things at once. But that's just the way culture has gone, right? We just have all these distractions. We think we can multitask. I'm not sure we can. So the goal is to not, and certainly in the beginning, stay very, very focused. And I think that's answering your question. And
Yeah,
how do
it
you
is.
teach that?
Yeah. The idea for me is not everybody will, not everybody won't. You know what I'm saying? Some will, some won't. And it's really a
Yeah.
challenge because you see the progression of agents who are sticking closer to a schedule, and then all of a sudden they get really good. And then all of a sudden, like you said earlier, they either go through burnout or they have a bunch of business and they fail their schedule again. And it's funny because that's where
Oh yeah.
the hills and valleys come in. And I look at them like,
Hmm.
you are such in momentum, stay there, right? Because we know how it feels to be in a momentum. It's like don't stop, don't stop, But then all of a sudden they let everything creep into their morning schedule, and then all of a sudden they just let it all go, right? And it's like,
Yep.
oh, you're right there. Now they have to redevelop it, and that redevelopment to get the pipeline going again is the hardest thing because it's a 90-day structure, and who has that's why these gyms make so much money. They know, hey, you don't want to lose weight. Come on in here. We'll give you $99. And all of a sudden, they give you a year contract, and they only see you maybe 3 weeks out of the year. So they know the system because they know how human nature
Yeah.
is. And you're not
Yeah.
right or wrong. It's just human nature
Yeah.
because you want to tell yourself, it's harder to tell yourself to go do it than to say, hey, I deserve not to do it. And it's
Right.
really one of the things I want to say, first of all, thanks today for taking the time. You have brought so much great information in. I know that
Thanks,
there's
dude.
so much more to learn from you. I've had the opportunity to be not only a friend, but to be around you in partnership with you in so many projects that we have actually had so much fun thinking, clearer, shifting the way we talk to our teams, shifting our lead generation systems. Again, I'll bring that up to everybody. Al and I share a lot of different lead generation systems. We also achieve discounts through these companies because we share them so much. And if you guys want to know some lead generation systems we use, let us know. Send that in your questions as well, because I can tell you what you hear from Alan today. I don't care about sharing. I care about abundance. And if that's the key word, if you heard from Alan, that means if everybody could be successful and build wealth growth in their futures, you don't get in real estate just to do real estate sales for the rest of your life. You get into real estate to build your systems, build your income, because your real business is what you do in your investments. This is our job, real estate. Our real business is what Alan did. He built all these different investment structures and he built wealth. So when he said earlier, I don't need to do
Actually,
this.
you're one of the better ones at that I have seen. You should probably do a session on that one day, just on your own. Um, yeah. Sorry to interrupt
But
there.
no, and I got to tell you, you can make real estate fun, but it's a challenge. And you can make real estate. I had a chance to be around you and make real estate fun. I've had a lot of laughs with you, a lot of stories that we've done, and I
We can't
know that
share
we're
all
at
those
the
stories, right?
yeah, no, we can't. But I gotta tell you, it's been 35 plus years, and I'm gonna tell you, thank you for giving some knowledge today because the newer, the middle, and the top agents all need to know it's okay what they're doing, how they're growing. It's like, they don't have mentorships like we do. They don't have that ability to have leaders who care, And I gotta say, it was really fun to do that with you today.
Thanks. Thanks,
We're
man.
gonna end this beautiful Zoom. If you guys have questions and you want to connect, please leave it in messages for us. We will be sending out this video to everybody too, so you can listen once again and hopefully get more and more tips from it. And again, Alan, thank you again. I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you
All
too.
right. Well,
All right.
everybody, you
Continued
have a
success,
fantastic
everybody.
Thursday. All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye
Bye.
bye.